Darkcast Network. Out of the shadows comes the best of indie podcasts. Today we have a fresh story from the headlines, as a cult-like group known as the Zizians have been known for killing possibly 6 or more people all across the United States. Jack Ziz Lasota, once being falsely listed as dead by obituary in the past, is known to be as their leader, was just arrested. This is a case in progress. Information here was obtained as of the end of the month, February 2025. My name is DJ, and this is the Mythical True Crime Podcast. Hello, and welcome to tonight's show. I thought I'd do something a little different this time, and actually read from headlines directly happening now. This story caught my eye, as it involves a cult leader who was reported dead in the past. So is this an undead cult leader? Well, let's find out and read the story. It's been reported through many news websites that the Zizians are a cult-like group that have been linked to at least 6 deaths, confirming 3. I'll go into detail more so of the 3 murders that were confirmed, but more information I found. Mike Wedling from BBC reports that a cult-like leader known as the Zizians have been linked to a string of murders, sparking several arrests. Jack Lasota, a 34-year-old transgender female who allegedly leads the group with a few dozen followers, was arrested on Sunday, alongside Michelle Zako, 32, and Daniel Blank, 26, on charges including trespassing and obstruction. It's being reported that authorities saying that they've investigating at least 6 killings across the U.S. that allegedly connected to the members of this group, including a double homicide in Pennsylvania, a knife attack in California, and the shooting of a U.S. border guard in January. 3 other alleged members of the group have already been charged with murder. Now, Mike goes on in detail describing the alleged leader of the group. Jack Lasota, she had earned a degree in computer science at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in 2013, and according to her blog, which is where most she wrote her manifesto, she moved to San Francisco about 3 years later from then. From there, she wrote that she applied to several jobs in tech companies and startups, including a brief internship at NASA, and began to associate with people involved in rationalist movements, an intellectual trend popular in Silicon Valley that emphasized the power of the human mind to see clear and eliminate biases and bad thinking, and also improve individual society. Lasota began blogging using the alias Ziz, Z-I-Z, Z-I-Z, but soon fell out with mainstream rationalists as her writings spun off bizarre directions. The Zizians are described as a death cult and a fringe group by the San Francisco Gate. They're a radical offshoot of the Bay Area rationalism community, which into itself has been described as cult-like. Zizians hold the belief of anarchists, emphasize animal rights and veganism, and advocate, quote, timeless decision theory, and also believe that humans can hold separate personalities by activating different hemispheres on their left or right part of their brain. The Zizians, again, are named after their founder, Jack Amadeus Lasota, who goes by Ziz. Ziz targeted mostly smart, autistic-ish trans women who were extremely vulnerable and isolated for recruitment. In 2019, when she was in San Francisco, Lasota was arrested alongside 3 other members of the movement for protesting the CFAR event in Occidental, California. Members filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Sonoma County, which was later dismissed. Lasota actually, in bizarre turn of events, was reported dead from drowning in August 2022 in an Alaskan newspaper, but then was later arrested in January 2023 in Philadelphia for obstruction of justice. Zizians are alleged to have committed, again, multiple violent and disruptive acts in the recent years, leading into the 3 violent killings that have happened across the country. Now, before traveling to Vermont, Teresa Youngblood, a member of the Zizians, and Ophelia Buchholz lived in separate Airbnbs in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Now, these 2 are involved in the murder of Officer David Manland. On January 20th, 2025, following a traffic stop, the U.S. Border Patrol agent was killed in a shootout with Teresa Youngblood, who was wounded, and German national Ophelia Buchholz, who had died at the shootout. The pair were traveling south on Interstate 91 in Coventry, Vermont, when they were pulled over as part of a routine traffic stop. The 2 were put under periodic surveillance nearly 1 week before the shooting, after they were reported to be, quote, armed and wearing all black tactical clothing when checking into their hotel. The case had been connected to several other murders due to connections between the suspects. The murder of Curtis Lind in Vallejo, California, and the double murder of Richard and Rita Zocco in Chester Heights, Pennsylvania. Both Teresa and Ophelia were described as having cut off all contact with their friends in the fall of 2023 and May 2024. Homeland Security agents have been conducting periodic surveillance of them since January 14th. A hotel employee in Lyndonville, Vermont, reportedly contacted law enforcement after the duo was seeing Youngblood carrying, quote, an apparent firearm in an exposed carry holster. Both wore all black tactical-style clothing with protective equipment. After the report, Homeland Security agents contacted the duo, who refused to speak with them. They claimed that they were in Vermont only to purchase real estate. The duo checked out of the Lyndonville Hotel and were seen 5 days later in Newport, Vermont, with Youngblood carrying a handgun. The next day, hours before the shootout, the pair were seen at a Walmart with Buchholz buying aluminum foil. After the shootout, authorities found ammunition, a helmet, night vision binoculars, and tactical belt with a holster, a pair of walkie-talkies, a magazine loaded with cartridges, a shooting range targets from their car. Smartphones were also found, wrapped up in aluminum foil, apparently to prevent their phones from being tracked. Their handguns were reportedly bought by an associate in Mount Tabor, Vermont. Approximately 3:15 p.m., Agent David Christopher Mayland initiated a traffic stop on I-91 southbound, about 15 kilometers from the border of Canada, with a blue 2015 Toyota Prius. Registered in North Carolina to conduct an immigration inspection, Buchholz, a German national, and the car's registered owner, appeared to have had an expired visa in the Homeland Security database. The driver allegedly drew a handgun and fired at least 2 shots at the agent during the stop, while Buchholz also attempted to draw a firearm. At least one Border Patrol agent returned fire and shot the duo. Mayland and Buchholz both pronounced dead at the scene, while the second suspect had taken to the hospital and later arrested. The victim, 44-year-old David Mayland from Blue Earth, Minnesota, was a veteran in the U.S. Air Force and graduated from Fairmont High School. According to his family, he had been planning to marry his partner. Mayland was an active security officer at the Pentagon during the 9/11 attacks before handling security at Joint Base Costa-Bolin area. He had worked for the last 15 years at the Department of Homeland Security and a Border Patrol agent, and was also a canine handler. Mayland was the first Border Patrol agent killed by gunfire in the line of duty since 2014. Now, a little more about the suspects. The registered owner of the car, Ophelia Buchholz, was a transgender German citizen on a current visa working as a quantitative trader for Tower Research Capital in New York since October 2021. Before working at that tower, she had worked as a trader at the Radix Trading for 2 years and also as an intern at the Jane Street Capitol. Buckholt reportedly quit working at the tower in 2023, which put the extension of her visa at risk. Buckholt was raised in Frauenburg and attended the Goethe Gymnasium there, where she was praised for having remarkable knowledge in mathematics. In 2014 and in 2015, she had won a gold and bronze medal for the German team in the International Olympiad of Informatics. She graduated from the University of Waterloo in 2019 with a bachelor's degree in mathematics. Buckholt had expressed interest in TESCRIL, rationalism, after attending a CFAR event in 2019, and reportedly cut off contact with friends in the fall of 2023. In the summer of that year, Buckholt was described as taking part in a, quote, anxious, secretive phone calls that coincided with her deepening involvement in the Zizian movement. The Freiburg Public Prosecutor's Office is investigating the circumstances surrounding Buckholt's death, as is done whenever a German citizen dies abroad.
After this quick message, we'll be right back.
Hello there, listeners. Whether you're new or you've been with me from the start, a great way to catch up and dive deeper into the world of mythical true crime is to check out my earlier shows. I've covered everything from Bigfoot to aliens and ghosts. Take a moment and browse through the past episodes, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Your support means everything to me. Federal authorities arrested and charged with the alleged shooter, Teresa Youngblunt, a 21-year-old woman from Seattle. She was wounded during the shootout and taken to North Country Hospital, before she was being transferred to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center in New Hampshire. She graduated from Lakeside High School in Seattle and was studying computer science at the University of Washington. Youngblunt's parents reported her missing to the Seattle Police Department in May of 2024. They feared that she was in a controlling relationship and being forced to cut off contact with her friends and family. Authorities allegedly found a journal containing a cipherdex and the mention of having recently taken LSD. Youngblunt was charged in connection with the shootout on federal charges of assaulting a federal officer with a deadly weapon and using and discharging a firearm during a violent crime. She was ordered detained without bail. Now, a court filing by federal prosecutors claims that Youngblunt's association with the persons of interest in the murders of another 3 people other than Maitland, Curtis Lind, as mentioned before, a landlord in California, and Richard and Rita Zoka, the parents of one of the persons of interest in Pennsylvania. The other murders have also been connected to the Zizian group. A little more about Curtis Lind. He was a landlord in Vallejo, California, who had owned a trailer park and rented a trailer to a group of people, including Lesota. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the group stopped paying rent. Group members also began placing locks on the trailers meant for other tenants. When Lind took the group to court for back rent, one member brandished a knife, causing Lind to start carrying a pistol. On November 15, 2022, Lind, at the time he was 80 years old, was attacked by a group of people after being called in to fix a water leak. He was struck in the head, stabbed through his chest with a sword, and stabbed through his right eye, having him blind in that eye. He survived and fatally shot one of the attackers, 31-year-old Emma Borman, and injured another. They had been arrested alongside Lesota at the 2019 CFAR protest, and Borman had reported Lesota's 2022 drowning to the newspapers. 2 of Lynn's alleged attackers were charged with Borman's murder due to their actions precipitating Lynn's self-defense case under California's felony murder rule. Now, Lesota was contacted by police during that incident, but wasn't charged. On January 17, 2025, 3 days before the shootout with Maitland, Lind was stabbed to death and had his throat slit outside a gated property in Vallejo. Lind was expected to be an important witness in Borman's murder trial, and prosecutors charged a 22-year-old man with Lind's murder. Now, Youngblood had attended high school with the suspect and had recently applied for a marriage license to marry him. The suspect dictated to reporters a statement addressed to Eliezer Yudkowsky, calling himself, quote, a student of Yudkowsky who became disillusioned with him. Lozota and Zako were arrested in Maryland on February 16, 2025. They are being held in custody without bail, and Lozota requested a pretrial release, which was denied by the local judge. Now, during a welfare check on January 2nd, 2023, two other people, Pennsylvania police discovered the bodies of husband and wife Richard and Rita Zako, both aged 72 and 69 respectively, in their home in Chester Heights, Pennsylvania. Now, autopsies found that Rita had a gunshot wound to the back of her head, and Richard had stab wounds in his right hand and temple. Their daughter, Michelle Jacqueline Zako, was named as a person of interest in those murders. She is alleged to have purchased guns found at the scene of Madeline's killing and also been in contact with a person of interest in Lynn's killing. She's also associated with the Zizians. There's many people in high-profile notoriety that have reactions to this. One of them being Vermont's U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders and Peter Welch, and the U.S. House Representative Becca Baetlint. They issued a joint statement together saying, quote, our deepest condolences go out to the agents' families and the Border Patrol. Representative Mark Green, who chairs the House Committee of Homeland Security, issued a statement saying that he was heartbroken by the loss of Agent David Madland, adding, we just never forget that the men and women in green on the front lines of the border crisis defend our homeland at great personal cost, and that far too often these courageous public servants, like Agent Mayland, pay the ultimate price. Mayland's flag-draped casket was carried by motorcade from Burlington to Albany International Airport by agents of the Border Patrol and the Vermont State Police, and was flown to his family in Minnesota. Now, Lozota's blog, I believe, is still online. I won't be leaking it here because I don't agree with some of the things that are said in it. The blog includes thousands of words, blending Lozota's personal experiences and theories together about technology and philosophy, and other comments about pop culture and computer coding and dozens of other subjects. I mean, at one point, during a long diatribe about the TV series The Office, artificial intelligence, and other subjects, she wrote, quote, I realized that I was no longer able to stand people, not even rationalists anymore, and I would live the rest of my life completely alone, hiding my reaction to anyone it was useful to interact with. I had given up on my ability to see beauty, so I could see evil. Now, this information I obtained on USA Today. Among all the people charged, we'll start with Michelle Zako. She's 32. She was arrested again with a handgun alongside Lozota and another man in Maryland on Monday, February 24th. Zako faces state charges for trespassing, resisting and interfering with an arrest, obstruction, and carrying a handgun. ATF agents also were pursuing federal charges against Zako over allegations that she lied on purchasing paperwork for several guns bought back in 2024, which were later used by those two other people in Vermont during the double fatal shootout with the Border Patrol agent. Zako is also a, quote, person of interest in the Pennsylvania homicide of her parents from late 2022. Daniel Blank, 26, who faces Maryland charges for trespassing, obstruction, and hindering in connection with his, Monday arrest. He was also a suspect in the deaths of Zako's parents, who were killed near where he grew up in Maryland, court records show. Blank was reported missing in 2022. Lozota faces Maryland charges of trespassing, obstruction, possession of a handgun and a vehicle. Court records in Vermont also refer to Lozota as a, quote, person of interest in the deaths of Zako's parents. The USA Today article also goes into details of how she faked her own death in April 2022. Teresa Youngblood, 21, accused by federal prosecutors for shooting U.S. Border Patrol agent David Madland on January 20th near the Canadian border in northern Vermont. Madland was killed in the exchange and also was the German nationalist Youngblood in traveling with Ophelia Buchholz. Federal court filings indicate Zako bought the guns Youngblood and Buchholz were carrying. Youngblood is in federal custody at the moment. Max Snyder, 22, who was late last year, got a marriage license to marry Youngblood in Seattle, Washington, where they grew up together. Snyder is accused by Salona County, California prosecutors by ambushing and fatally stabbing a landlord who in December 22 tried to evict Lasota and the other group members from his Vallejo County property. The landlord shot 2 of the group members, killing 1 in the incident ruled as self-defense by prosecutors. The USA Today article was written by Trevor Hughes. He went on to say that the unfolding details have drawn international attention and flashy headlines as authorities, court records, and interviewers have revealed a tangled web of relationships and shocking violence linked to this very small group of highly educated vegan computer experts. Quote, "They're not all necessarily connected in one overarching plan. It's not necessarily like the Manson family type plan," says Mark Pitcavage, a senior research fellow and policy advisor for the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism. Quote, "When you look at Lasota's writings, it's all about the mind and consciousness. Lasota doesn't really seem interested in left-wing political issues the way most people would understand it." USA Today did consult several extremist experts, interviewed a person who knew several members of the group, and examined dozens of other court filings from Vermont to Pennsylvania and California to try to understand this bigger picture, which I outlaid for you in this episode. So what do you think? Do you think this is a group that unintentionally tries to mimic or mirror those of the actions of the Manson murders? Let us know in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and share this. It goes a long way in helping these productions. And if you'd like to join my Patreon or my support on Buzzsprout, that would be entirely welcomed as well. Now that concludes this quick episode of the Mythical True Crime Podcast. My name is DJ. Good night. And that concludes another captivating episode, delving into the world of mythical true crime. I appreciate you joining me tonight as we listen to the facts from these true crime tales. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll uncover even more mysteries. Until then, thank you for listening to tonight's episode. Good night.